Welcome to Words Unspoken, the Hills podcast, paying tribute to the reality show that aired on MTV from 2006 to 2010.
We are two Southern sisters rewatching The Hills in 2016 and chatting about it weekly for your entertainment.
My name is Susan, and I'm a 30-something photographer who hates most reality shows but loves The Hills. I have been rewatching the show for a few months.
My name is Jem. I'm a professional in my 30s who hasn't seen the show since it originally aired, so I'm really looking forward to reliving the magic again 10 years later.
Welcome to our bonus episode in which we will be discussing The Hills. That was then, this is now, 10th anniversary special.
Susan, I'm so excited we're finally getting a chance to talk about this because, as our listeners know who follow us on social media, I watched the special live and Susan had to wait until the next day to see it. So this is our first chance to be together and break it all down.
I am so excited to talk about this. Spoiler alert! As you would expect, we will definitely be spoiling things, so this is your spoiler alert. If you have not seen the special, if you have not seen all of the episodes of The Hills, we will be doing spoilers for the whole series and also this special, so this is your warning. Okay, we start off the special with this iconic shot of modern-day Lauren driving down the road, playing Natasha Bedingfield's Unwritten.
Not to be confused with Words Unspoken, our hit theme song by Josh Lamkin.
And I loved this because this is how The Hills started out. It's a beautiful story and they're doing a great job of coming full circle. So I enjoyed that very much. It was funny because Lauren said she didn't think people would still be talking about the show 10 years later. And that's true. I mean, that's quite the longevity.
And I love how she's upgraded from her BMW black convertible to her Porsche convertible.
Absolutely. So they do just kind of a little opening sequence and they show some scenes that will be happening. I love the alarmed look on Lauren's face when they said they were going to open the boxes of the unaired footage. And she's like, you didn't tell me you were going to do that. And she looked pretty scared.
Her scared reaction was equal in levels to my excited reaction because this special really did turn out to be a little bit, I don't want to say candid, that's not the word, but it was a little bit more behind the scenes than I thought MTV was going to give us. And that was the first opportunity I had to realize that we were actually going to see some interesting stuff.
I agree, Jem. I was really excited. I actually didn't think they would get so behind the curtain. They keep a lot quiet, it seems like, during the show, so I was surprised they went deeper than I thought. And I know like lots of people were disappointed they did not go more so, but I was happy with it. But we'll talk about that more at the end. So then Lauren is going to her parents' house in Laguna Beach.
Were you taken aback when they suddenly started this show at her parents' house? I mean, I kind of get it as far as going back to Laguna Beach, back to where it all started. That was not at all where I expected this to go. That's when I realized this show was going to be nothing like I expected.
I really wasn't thinking about like, oh, where are we going to get started and all that. I didn't really have any expectations as far as that goes, as surprised or not surprised, but I actually love that they started there. Once again, if you look at it from a storytelling perspective, they're trying to tell this awesome story and they're taking it back to the beginning, not just of The Hills, because she really did start her journey at Laguna Beach, and I loved that. I thought it was beautiful as far as storytelling goes.
I liked how at one point early in the show, they were playing the song from the One Direction kid, Zayn, and it was showing The Hills footage, but it was playing a One Direction kid singing. And I was very overwhelmed from a sensory standpoint because I didn't know what year it was or what day it was or what was happening.
Yeah, I saw several tweets about that. And it was funny because, of course, I was like, I don't know any One Direction song. So I'm glad you do.
It was Zayn, Susan. It's different. He's from One Direction.
I am not up on all this.
What these kids are doing these days.
Exactly. Oh, get off my lawn!
How great did Lauren's parents look? Can we talk about that for a minute?
They did not look any older than they did in Laguna Beach. I always loved her parents. They always seemed really cool, and I always enjoyed when they were in any of the episodes. So that's why I was really excited to see them. And her mother is just beautiful. Looks exactly the same, and her father does too. That was really fun. Did you like how her mother had all her covers framed in the house?
That was actually really hilarious. They also didn't have that vibe of having had a ton of work done. They just looked like they're actually aging naturally and beautifully, and I was very jealous of them both.
Yeah, they looked awesome. And did you also love Lauren's blue and white dress? It was so pretty. I loved
super
it.
Cute.
So they kind of go back and start reminiscing about the beginning of the Hills and how it first came about and all of that stuff. And they say, Audrina was our very pretty neighbor. And then what was really funny is when her dad was talking about how nervous she was before her Vogue internship interview, because he was like, you have this. And she was like, nervous. Oh no, I'm not going to get it. Whitney's so pretty and put together. She should definitely get it. Whereas I think her dad was more realistic. Obviously, you're on this show. You have the internship through the show.
You know what, ladies of America? This is a really good moment to stop and talk about how no matter who you are, where you go, you're always going to find somebody who's doing better at something than you will. And for somebody like Lauren Conrad, even in those days when she was a green young thing, for her to be like, oh my gosh, Whitney Port is just so amazing and put together, when there were probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of women in the country that looked at her that way. And it's just kind of funny to hear someone that gives that effect, being super cute and having it all together, feeling insecure about someone like Whitney who's maybe doing that a little bit better than she is. So it's a good lesson to everyone that no matter how hard you try or where you go, you'll always find someone who looks prettier or seems smarter than you.
It was funny because they brought on some of the behind the scenes producers and directors to talk. And I enjoyed when Sophia Rossi came up and she said, yeah, Lauren was on the cover of Teen Vogue and she was nervous about getting the internship at Teen Vogue. Like, it was so funny.
Hilarious.
She was just so naive.
Yeah, when you're that young, you just, you're nervous. And I'm sure that people were putting things in her head about it from a production standpoint. Just because her parents told her everything was going to be okay and she was going to get it didn't mean that the producer, I'm sure they were, setting her up to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to get this job or not. So it kind of went from fun times chuckling with Sophia Rossi,
who is, of course, the co-founder with Zooey Deschanel of Hello Giggles.
Which I love.
Absolutely. Now, Jim, I know you noticed this because I saw that you tweeted about it, but that Lauren was wearing an apple necklace.
Yes. And her husband's name is William Tell. All I could think about was the story of William Tell, who shot an apple off of his son's head with an arrow. And I just made the direct correlation. I'm sure that Lauren was just wearing a cute apple necklace, but being a giant nerd, that was all I could think of.
I think you're right.
Really?
I want to know.
She also had an earring. I don't know if there was one that matched because I could only see one ear. And it said Tell. And it made me want one that said Jim.
That's what makes me think the apple necklace might have been on purpose, because she has always loved that personalized jewelry. Like, she always used to wear those rings that said Lauren on them, and apparently she had a necklace that said Jason on it when she dated him.
Good Lord.
I think the apple is on purpose.
I would want necklaces saying, like, what I'm going to have for dinner that night, like sushi.
So now we come to the first part of the episode where MTV, to be clear, MTV and not Lauren, throws a little shade because Lauren says, I never loved being on camera. A lot of people love being on camera. And as she says that, it cuts to a picture of Spencer and Heidi. It was interesting, Jem. She said she doesn't go back and watch the show.
Which we suspected in our last couple of episodes. We had a conversation about that. Like, really? I doubt she watches this.
No, there's no way. And she said that some people know the show better than her. I'm like, oh my gosh, that must be so crazy, because you hear a lot of actors saying that about these huge popular shows and everyone knows all this minutia and they don't know. But this is her life, so it's crazy to think that other people know her life better than she does, but I would never watch it either. So then we go to the paper crown shoot, and this is one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
So pleasing to the eye.
Oh,
it was gorgeous. Just so pretty.
And of course, as a photographer, I'm always looking at how things are set up and aesthetically pleasing. And this is exactly the kind of photography that I love to do, with all these light, airy colors, these beautiful, blush colors and all the flowers. And this vineyard setting is just gorgeous.
Definitely right up your alley.
Love it. And then this was like one of my favorite parts too, because she was watching the footage of when she and Emily, the intern from Vogue, were going around looking for flowers and stuff for a party. We haven't gotten to that episode in our recaps yet, but where she looks really stupid and Emily is all polished and put together. And once again, this is Emily Weiss, who of course is the founder of Inside the Gloss. But it was just funny because it was like, oh, this is what I was like then, and then now I'm I'm polished and this whole photo shoot is my company and look how I'm doing. So once again, we're going back to our theme of that was then, this was now. And I love how they stuck to that theme, and it's just beautiful storytelling to me.
Once again, the florists win.
I knew you were going to say that.
All those flowers were a dream.
They were gorgeous. So then we get into this interesting conversation with her parents talking about they already knew everything that was coming up because Lauren told them. And it was just funny to me because all the producers were like, what, you told them? And she's like, because they could see it on TV. Hello.
Right. If you know your life is about to be on TV, you better tell your parents everything before that happens, which she actually said, and they all laughed. It was really cute.
And then we get into our first behind the scenes footage that we haven't seen yet.
And this goes from 0 to 60 from like a seriousness standpoint, because we're being all like cute and pretty and fun times. And then all of a sudden they're talking about Jason.
And I cannot believe they actually addressed the fact that he wasn't sober, because that's definitely something during the show they hid. That's why we really haven't talked about it that much. We've like loosely talked about it in our episodes, but they don't really ever address that. And I'm sure, I mean, of course they all knew, obviously, but they couldn't talk about it. That's one of the things I was saying earlier. They didn't talk about any of that tabloid fodder. And I think it's kind of to the detriment, because I think that would be an important thing to talk about with young girls.
I agree. And jumping back to the special, that was a really compelling scene. All of that B-roll of them talking and her saying, like, clearly something's wrong with you. Why are you acting this way? And he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Just being like speaking nonsense. That was a true heartbreaking moment.
Mm-hmm. That was
all
real.
The footage, it was so real, and it was sad. And I'm pretty sure that Lauren on her couch now, when she was talking about it, was actually tearing up whilst she discussed it. She looked really emotional. So I think it's something that still sticks with her. And I'm sure seeing that them making her, watch it on this show really brought back memories, especially if she hasn't looked at it in a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Because, everything we saw was not the full story. I mean, she was saying things like she had to go pick him up from clubs. And it was interesting because, as you know, I've read all her books, and there is a character in her books where she has to do that all the time. A girl in the book has to go pick up her boyfriend all the time who's completely passed out. And so now I'm like, oh, that really did come from her real life relationship. It makes you look at things so differently. And it was funny because her parents were like, we threw a party when she broke up with Jason.
I mean, they were really codependent. And that comment she made about how breaking up with him meant that there wouldn't be anyone picking him up, which is probably naive now that I think about it, because he probably had plenty of backup ladies picking him up at the club when he needed them. But she had to change the locks when they broke up. That was how they broke up. That was pretty intense.
That was very intense. As far as him having other people, a lot of times when you are not sober like that, everyone else is more of an enabler than I'll come pick you up at the club. So I'm not sure. He probably didn't have anyone else who was going to pick him up at the club. Someone else would be like, oh, just have more drinks.
Yeah, she could have been the only rational influence in his life. Who knows?
Absolutely.
But I do like how she says he's okay now. He's sober and he's married and he's happy and I'm happy for him. And
that was really sweet.
Super nice.
And so then we go to the part that everyone on the internet is talking about, which to me is one of the least important parts of the whole episode, and that's the B-roll of Kim Kardashian.
Which we've got to talk about, but was not that exciting to you and me. Sorry, we're not Kardashian fans, everyone.
Yeah, we're really not. I've never even seen the show. So this was at Heidi and Spencer's housewarming party, and it was hilarious because Heidi's like, we're the only one in the whole United States who have jellyfish. Okay, sure. I'm sure.
I thought it was interesting how Heidi really ruled this scene, and she was just like, I mean, she's a loud person in general, which I don't condemn in any lady. Nothing wrong with being loud and noisy.
Absolutely not.
That would be how people would describe me. So I fully accept and embrace it. But she's just so confident and so in charge compared to Kim, who's kind of shrinking violet at this point. And this is obviously, way before all of her fame and fortune came along. But it was just funny how Heidi was like the famous reality star in this scene, and Kim was more of just, a fringe person in their social circle and didn't even make it to the show.
Well, I have read this somewhere else, and I already knew, Kim was in there. I wouldn't call it her social circle. She was actually arranging Heidi's shoes or something. I read Spencer Pratt said something like this. It was a year or so ago that Kim really wanted to be on the show and was kind of like a hanger on and would go in and was like a stylist for Heidi's stylist and would arrange her shoes and pick out her clothes and stuff, and that she desperately wanted to be on the show. Now, granted, this comes from Spencer, so take with that what you will, but obviously she wanted to be on reality TV. She made that clear.
I don't know why I'm even asking you this question, but wasn't Kim Kardashian Paris Hilton's assistant or something?
Yes.
And that's kind of like, okay.
I think so. I think that's
I mean, obviously I know the like whole life story with like her father and OJ and all that, but we're getting way off track. Okay.
Anyway, let's move on from Kim. Everyone online's talking about it like it was the most exciting thing that happened in the whole episode, and it was not.
Bye, Kim.
So it was funny. Lauren said confrontation was encouraged by the producers, maybe not manufactured, but definitely encouraged. And she like smirked.
Was this when they had that kind of really unpolished footage of like Heidi sitting on the kitchen counter and yelling at Lauren, and Lauren's like, I don't want to talk right now, and yells at people to get out of her room, and she's changing and all that. That was really, I could have watched that for hours.
Yeah, that was amazing, because I know we haven't gotten to that episode yet, so we won't talk about the specifics of what happened, but I liked, they started out with the footage that you saw on TV, and then you saw the stuff that didn't air. It was just interesting. Here, like Lauren getting mad, because you really didn't see that very much. She always, was very polished in every episode, and even when she was having meltdowns and stuff, which happened several times, or she was crying, it was still very like classy and polished, so it was interesting to see her get mad at the cameraman and be like, I'm changing, go away. Why am I?
And just being like a normal pissed off person.
Right. She was 19 years old. The fact that she managed to hold it together most of the time on camera has always impressed me. And then she says, it wasn't fake, but it's not necessarily real.
And then the internet went crazy with shock and horror and could not believe what was happening before their very eyes. I don't know where they've been or what they've been doing that they would be surprised about this information.
I mean, come on, y'all. I didn't know people still thought that reality shows were real.
There are probably people that think the Real Housewives are 100% real and they just want to believe it. But we don't judge you. We don't judge you people who think that, but we kind of do.
Yeah, I do. I like when Lauren was talking about how she feels watching it and how every argument at the time felt like it was the end of the world. And she looks back now and realizes she was just being super dramatic and how it's part of growing up. I loved that part. Like her perspective was so great because obviously she's 30 years old now. And when she looks back at that stuff, she sees all that. And I just loved hearing her perspective.
It's just like anyone else looking back at something that happened when they were that age. Things of that caliber. Obviously, like if it's something more traumatic, it's going to have more of an effect on you.
And then Sophia reads the script out to Lauren, and Lauren's like, what? You wrote this before we even went to the club? This is the creepiest thing ever. And she seemed super freaked out. And I was like, really? You didn't know that those existed?
Sophia was like, you guys were pretty predictable. It was pretty easy for me to figure out what's going to happen every night. She's great, by the way. I loved her whole presence in the show. And she was super casual and just like hanging out in the chair, chit-chatting it up. And I loved her. She was really fun.
I loved it too, because I'm sure everyone's always annoyed at every episode. I'm like, I want to know what was going on behind the scenes. I want to know what the producers were doing. Were they texting them and all that stuff? I know people are annoyed, but I was like, yay, this is for me.
Yes.
So Lauren tells Sophia how she felt really set up for that one, the big episode of I want to, you know what you did, which I know we haven't gotten to that yet, so we're not going to talk about it. We'll talk about it when we get to that episode more. But
it was really sad.
It was really sad. She was
crying and like, MTV, why would you do this to me?
Yeah, it's like, you should be mad. You should care about what Spencer did to me. And it was interesting because in this specific episode, they didn't directly, they like really skirted around it. Like,
yeah,
what
it was never
Spencer
addressed on the show.
It was, but eventually. But it was always interesting to me because once again, that was something that was in the tabloids and they tried to stay away from that, which I think was to their detriment. I don't think that was a good choice, but I mean, I guess it was the rule or something. But it was a real freak out. And I saw several people on social media being like, this was super disappointing that she freaked out like this. And I can't believe she had this reaction. I'm like, oh my gosh, they like engineered them both to be in this building at the same time. It was completely manipulative. And as I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to the episode, Lauren was definitely like intoxicated.
Sure. She was drunk and she felt really ambushed. So bad combo.
And then Lauren says, I'm so glad social media wasn't around in those days. Amen, sister.
No kidding.
There is no way I would have wanted to do a reality show like that with, reality shows are so different now.
They are.
They're like, the Hills would never air now.
It'd be super boring to most of the world.
It would be so boring because now you need to have fights. You need to have people punching people out and drama, like massive drama. The Hills never would make it now, which is very sad because I prefer a show like The Hills to anything like Jersey Shore or whatever is airing now. So
I don't think that's on anymore.
That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that it was airing now. I meant the Jersey Shore, whatever is airing now. I don't think Jersey Shore is airing, Jim.
I never know with you, Susan.
I'm not that out of touch. And then they talk about the other scene where Lauren and Heidi kind of have their makeup, in quotation marks, where they trap them on the boat. And when you're watching the episode, I mean, you kind of get the idea that's why they were on the boat, but to see it confirmed is very funny. Basically, they were trapping them on the boat so they couldn't get off.
But they were super close to the shore, which was hilarious when Sophia was telling that part of the story. And she was just laughing about all the drunk people.
And Sophia's like, it was a booze cruise. And Lauren's like, no, it wasn't. It was a party on a boat. And she's like, no, it was a booze cruise. It was just funny. And then we go to New York City, and Lauren and her adorable husband, William Tell, are getting ready in the hotel room to walk a red carpet. And so we hear a little bit about how she met her husband at a blind date on Valentine's Day. That is the worst possible time for a blind date, by the way. But anyway.
I'd like to know more about that.
William has never seen the show. What did you think about that, Jim?
I didn't think it was weird because it was something that happened when she was so much younger. And it was funny how they talked about him flipping channels and accidentally ending up on a scene of her saying, I go to the Roosevelt pool every Sunday. And he was like, I just don't want to see this. I mean, it would be kind of like our husbands, like seeing video of us when we were like 18 or 19 acting ridiculous.
Oh no, I 100% don't think I would ever want to watch anything like that if I was like married to someone. There's no way. It was funny. He said, I don't want to know that you. It was hilarious. And I really enjoyed this part where they're in the limo and she's watching the footage of that time she had to go to New York and turn around and go back to LA. And I like how they juxtaposition it between this time she basically got kicked out of this fashion show and fashion week to all of a sudden she's on the red carpet with her clothes on. I loved that.
That was then, this is now.
Even though, of course, at the time she was on magazine covers.
True.
She still got kicked out of the fashion show.
Yeah, and just told to leave by Lisa Love casually and sadly.
And I loved her pink dress on the red carpet. Wasn't too crazy about the jacket she had over it, but the pink dress was beautiful.
My guess is it was super cold outside and the jacket had to happen. But
I'm sure.
Just a guess.
And I like when she said, you have to go through things, but it makes it all better when you arrive. And all I could think of when she was talking about this was how Heidi wanted to skip over all these steps to become this, famous party club girl, PR person, whatever she wanted to. And Lauren was always like, I know I have to pay my dues. And then we go to the Kohl's closed meeting at their design office. And I know you wanted to talk about William.
He's just super cute and supportive, and he's there with her. But she's in charge, making decisions, telling everyone what she wants to happen, taking feedback from her team. And he's right by her side, supporting her, but she's the boss. And I just like that about their dynamic, how they both seem to be doing their own thing, and he's, a great partner in life. And I just really enjoyed that whole part of the episode.
I did too. Partnership, and that's what marriage is supposed to be about. And it's great to see Lauren so happy after all this stuff we saw. She never had good luck with boys in any of those reality parts. I know she dated guys off screen who couldn't be on screen, but it was just nice to see she seems really settled and happy with him. I really loved seeing that behind the scenes stuff of her clothing line. I wish we could have actually seen more of that because I love that. That's one of my favorite parts about the show is seeing her internship, like what she does behind the scenes for fashion shows and stuff. I love that. So I love seeing that little behind the behind-the-scenes stuff at Kohl's. And I really like how Lauren wanted to create this accessible brand, and she made a point to say she didn't want to make clothes that not everyone could afford to buy. That was really cool. And that's a great marketing strategy because there's tons of high-end fashion designers, and she just wants to make clothes that anyone can go into Kohl's and buy, and I loved that. Kohl's does not sponsor us in spite of what it sounds like, but I just enjoyed that she said that. Then we come to Brody and Lauren. This was definitely one of my favorite parts of the whole show, and as you will find out when we get to those episodes later, Jem and I are huge Brody fans. However, that doesn't mean that we're devastated by the reveal, and I'm using quotes, that it was all fake. If you really watched the show carefully, you knew that it was not a real relationship. That was kind of like an attraction maybe and a crush. So she did say, yes, I had a crush on him, but we didn't have any chemistry, and that B-roll was the most hilarious thing ever.
That was the best part of the whole 1 hour special.
Where she was like, can we please be done with this? This is so awkward, because it was such a real moment. And you could tell Brody was kind of like, what? He seemed kind of annoyed with her.
Oh, he was so embarrassed on that part. He's like, what? What do you mean? And you could just tell he's one of these guys that he like, oh, you tell somebody that she looks pretty or has beautiful eyes and a nice smile and everything will be great. He just doesn't understand how his charm can't work on someone. He's so shocked.
Oh, yeah. You can tell he's definitely used to like sweeping women off their feet and making them feel like, oh, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it didn't work with Lauren, really. The scenes from Paris are something else that's super awkward.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious. I always thought that was funny, like during the actual episode, which of course we'll talk about later when we get to that episode, but they made it look so polished, and really it was like the most awkward thing ever. It just still came through as awkward in the actual aired episode, but it was like 20 times as awkward with her like dodging out of the way. She's like, I'm not going to kiss him. And the producers being like, oh yeah, you don't have to kiss him. And then texting the other producer, oh, make sure they kiss. Oh, it's just like,
And the French gentleman says, she run like a thief. And that was really hilarious and funny. I loved that.
And I knew they were trying to get her to ruin the dress. When I watched that episode for the first time, I was like, oh, they want some drama because this is like the big Paris episode and they wanted that dress to get ruined. I'm like, I knew it. And that's why they put her on the motorcycle. Then we get to hear about Lauren's charity work with the Little Market. I love this. I think this is so cool that she and her friend have started this business in which people who live in places where it is hard for women to work and sell their artisan goods, that people all over the world can now buy these goods.
I really appreciate that Lauren sees that it's not mandatory, but as a public figure, she has that responsibility to look out for other women and take care of them as best she can, especially underprivileged women at home and abroad, and that she's really doing something great for them without being, really snobby and over the top about it.
And then we go to Lauren's beautiful house and we talk about the series finale of The Hills, which for those of you who don't remember ended with Brody standing in front of the Hollywood sign, and then they zoomed back and it showed that, oh, he's really in front of a green screen. Haha, it was so dumb. Why didn't they show this scene with Lauren? It was perfect. Why did they not use that? I am very upset with MTV for not using that, because at the end of the day,
there had to be some reason.
The Hills was about Lauren. Even though she left halfway through season 5, it started with her. It should have ended with her. That was a perfect ending. Yes, it was super cheesy, but I think it was way cheesier that they zoomed back and Brody was standing in front of a fake set.
The only thing I can think of is that maybe there was like a negotiation thing where, Kristen wanted to kind of be like the last superstar lady at the end of the series and not have Lauren get the last laugh.
I do not think she would have had any control over that. I seriously doubt it, but maybe.
I wonder why they didn't use it.
I don't know. It was so good. I mean, so here's the whole point about that Brody scene, which of course they didn't show, but the last scene, the whole point of that, to zoom back, they were trying to be like, look, this wasn't really completely real. And a lot of people got that. So I think it's funny. So many people are like, oh, we didn't know it wasn't real. And that's kind of the point of the end of it, was to be like, hey, look, it's not completely real. But anyway, I really love that scene. Why wasn't that the end of the show? I hereby declare that is now my canon end of the show. And then we get into some funny stuff with William talking about, oh, I hate being on camera, and we met at the exact right time. And Sophia says, Lauren, you're dope, but I gotta go is what he would have said if they had still been filming The Hills then. I thought that was really funny. And then they walk down to the water side, and Lauren is dressed so pretty. She's wearing these gorgeous white pants with a cream sweater. She looks so pretty. And I guess they live right on the beach. And it was like picture perfect with their dogs. It was just gorgeous sunset, and they're standing there. And she's talking about how she decided to quit the show when she was not happy.
She doesn't get into the reasons why she wasn't happy and her heart wasn't in it. She uses really diplomatic and vague phrases on that part of the show. I know you had some theories about what she might have meant by that.
At the time, I remember reading that she was dating Kyle Howard, the actor. And if you're an actor, you can't just be on a reality show because that brings down your credibility or your marketability. So that was, at the time I read, that was why she decided to quit the show, because she was not able to have him in the show. And I'm sure, that puts a damper on your life when you're like, sorry, I got to film and I can't see you, especially for an actor who's probably busy going to do things. So that is why I read a long time ago that's why she actually decided to leave the show. Plus, I don't know where she was in her career at that time, so who knows. So we leave Lauren and William oceanside at sunset, and she says, I feel really lucky. I would go back and do it again. And people took that to mean she would do another reality show again. I'm like, that is not what it means. That means she would do like the Laguna Beach and the Hills over again.
Obviously, because that's what got her to where she is today. Of course she would do it again.
She has a $25 million net worth. She has 2 clothing lines, a charity. Of course she would do it again. She never would have gotten where she was this soon without the Hills. I mean, that's just reality. I'm not saying she never would have gotten there, but she probably never would have gotten there. I mean, she needed that visibility. I mean, she's 30 years old and she has like a clothing empire and she's written all these books. She never would have been able to do that without the Hills. Of course she'd do it again.
Yeah, it doesn't mean she's about to do an inside look at her life with William Tell in the black Porsche. I mean, that's just not going to happen. I really don't believe that.
No, that's crazy. I did read somewhere that a few years ago they tried to do a show about her work life, but no one would pick it up because it was too boring. People do not agree with me about what is interesting, what is not, but I understand that. No one wants to see reality TV like that anymore. But I think it's cool because to me, it's very empowering to see a woman building that kind of line for herself. And I know lots of famous people do these, lots of people do
projects.
Vanity lines and vanity projects, but I feel like she's very involved in hers.
It's what she always wanted to do. I mean, she has never wavered from her original ambitions when she was a young girl.
So let's talk about Spencer and Heidi's reaction to this special.
Well, Susan, Spencer was boycotting the show and said he would rather have food poisoning than watch an extended Kohl's commercial.
Let's talk about that, because I saw that in several places that, it was just a commercial for Kohl's.
Indeed, it was not.
This is Lauren's life. That's what she does. She does paper crowns and she designs for Kohl's, and that's part of her story. There was nothing inappropriate in it.
No, it wasn't overly salesy. I enjoyed it. And again, like you said, it's part of her life, sitting in the meeting, talking about the line. Of course, that piqued everyone's interest. And they were like, I want to wear that really cute outfit, or what a great idea she just had. I would totally wear that outfit she just described. So there were some, promotional product placement type moments, but that's her life. That's what she's doing. And I'm sure that's why she, agreed to do this special. Well, it just all worked out perfectly for her business. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that game.
I know. That's why I was so frustrated by all that coverage. I'm like, come on. We haven't talked about Spencer and Heidi yet, so I'm kind of excited we get to talk about it tonight. But Spencer is one to talk. He wrote a book about how to be a media whore, basically. And how everything he did was to make money, and how they would call the paparazzi and they made like $2 million off of paparazzi photos. I'm like, I don't think you should be sitting there talking about a Kohl's commercial. And he did not seem to boycott it very much because he was tweeting the whole time. And Heidi was like live blogging, and she said some nice things about Lauren, but then she said some super snarky things. And I just feel so bad for Heidi. I probably shouldn't, but I feel sad that she's been married to Spencer for 10 years.
On this new Snapchat feature that Instagram has. I watched a video of Heidi saying she's all filtered in black and white and talking to the camera. And she's like, I wish Lauren nothing but the best. And congratulations on this and this and that with your, that was in This Is Now, blah, blah, blah. In her live blog, she compares the early part of the show to seeing something, like cutting room footage from a horror movie or something like that.
I wonder if she meant her and Lauren fighting or she meant Jordan's orange hair. So the other criticism that we saw online was the fact that it was not a reunion show, but it was just all about Lauren, but there were other people on the hills. But I will say MTV never said it was a reunion show. The only person using a reunion show were other people. So people just didn't pay attention. And of course, you had seen on Twitter things like Stephanie Pratt and Brody were recording things, but it was just for things in between the actual special, which sadly I didn't see any of those since I didn't watch it live. I loved the special. I loved that it was only focused on Lauren because once again, I always feel like the show is about her. And so I'm glad they did it this way. That doesn't mean I wouldn't love to see a reunion show where everyone's sitting on the couch talking, but Lauren has already said she will never do that. But I don't know why they can't have it with everyone else and have Kristen be like the lead person. So I would not be a bit surprised if they didn't eventually do that.
I wonder what kind of ratings MTV got from this special, because I think there are a lot of other reality show things happening at the same time. And I just wonder, how many people tuned into this compared to other stuff that was going on. Shout out to my coworker, Corey, who sent me an article today that I felt encapsulated the entire special. And it was basically saying, and not just a special, but Lauren as a brand and as a person and as a reality star. She was always that person who, she was kind of perfect and she was like way better at everything and way like cuter than you'll ever be or whatever. So she was someone to kind of aspire to as you're growing up or getting older. But she never quite got everything perfect. And she was just so relatable and down to earth, but never just totally lost it like most reality stars that we've seen. And that kind of covers Lauren in a nutshell. She just is accessible to any typical girl anywhere at any time. And that's part of her charm. At the same time, she makes you feel like you could really be her. And I was actually joking with Corey today about how I feel like if I just put on some like really heavy winged eyeliner and I spend some time curling my hair, I could look exactly like she did on that couch the other night, which in real life I never could. But she made me think that entire hour that I could totally be just like that, even at the ripe old age of 29, which is my actual age. Mm-hmm. The average TV watcher out there wants to see a famous person break down or screw up or get into trouble or have a, bald Britney umbrella meltdown type moment that Lauren never really had. All her meltdowns were just like the ones that, every other girl her age has. And no judgment against Britney, because I would definitely have a similar meltdown if I were like that level of fame at that age. But, Lauren also proves that you can live a fairly normal life and still be, really successful and a really recognizable face and a public figure. She's perfected that art. And there are a lot of people that could learn lessons from her.
And I think she probably has a great life in that she and her husband can probably go to dinner and the paparazzi are not going to be chasing them down. So she can probably live a fairly normal life. And it seems like, when she was cracking jokes about, we dress like this for dinner every night, and they're like laughing about it. So clearly, they have a pretty simple life where they're not Hollywood types. So I feel like, oh, wow, you have the best of both worlds.
Her husband seems very low-key in a good way. I like him a lot.
Yes, I did too. So I do feel bad for the people who were disappointed that the special wasn't like something where everyone's pulling hair and screaming at each other. But at the end of the day, I'm like, the show was about Lauren. There were other people in it, but the show was always about Lauren.
There was plenty of behind-the-scenes information for anybody who wanted a little juiciness between the guy in Paris and her telling Brody that it was too awkward and her talking to Jason, asking him why he's so messed up. I mean, that was more than juicy enough for this gem.
Absolutely, and I agree. But once again, I think it goes back to our culture is that we're so used to these, I don't watch The Real Housewives either, but I've seen the footage of them like throwing things at each other and screaming and flipping out. People are used to that, so this is nothing. But that's why I loved it. So if you didn't, I'm sorry, but I would like to see a real reunion with people on couches, not necessarily fighting. But at the end of the day, if I was MTV, I would have done it that way too, because honestly, no one wants to hear Spencer just shade everybody and be out of control.
I think I would be pretty entertained by that.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in this particular instance, this was for fans of the show who loved Lauren and wanted to feel nostalgic about it and relive like their college years or their middle school and elementary years, which I saw a lot of that on Twitter and it made me feel old. But I thought it was amazing. I thought it was beautiful. The production value was gorgeous. It was just like the show where, you know, it just told a story and I loved that. And it was very aesthetically pleasing as well.
It was. It took place in a magical world and all the sets were so pretty and her outfits were so pretty and it was just neat and clean and beautiful.
I was very happy with it overall. A+.
A++. And the 2 pluses are for the 2 times that Blaine appeared in the special. Blaine!
Now, let's be honest. I think we would both love an hour with just Justin Bobby.
There was 1 second of him at the end. 1 second. And not even a second.
And there was an outcry from America. More
really
Justin Bobby. More Justin Bobby.
That's really what the people want.
It really is.
There's an Instagram that we reposted yesterday, maybe today. The Instagram user's name is Steven. And he reposted a cast photo from some point in time. And it's so funny how in the photo everyone is like perfectly posing and doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And Justin Bobby is like, no, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. And it was so funny that I had to repost it on our Instagram. So check that out for a little chuckle. Thanks, Steven.
Yes, thank you. I had fun talking with everybody.
Yeah, it was really fun interacting with all of our listeners and fellow Hills fans, fellow Lauren fans, fellow Justin Bobby fans. That was the majority. It was really, really fun live tweeting that night. I enjoyed it. And we should probably do it again soon for when Andy Cohen sits down and has Spencer and Heidi and the gang on couches and they're all screaming at each other and pulling each other's hair out.
I just really loved all the Hills love that was everywhere. It was so fun to see the Hills was trending on Twitter and all this excitement and everyone was talking about the Hills. It was awesome.
Just like we do all the time in our normal lives, everybody for one night was doing the same thing that we do, Susan.
I'm not sure we actually talk about the Hills in our real life, but okay.
Well, I'm in our real podcast life. So.
I really enjoyed talking to Nick during the live tweet of the marathon. He had some great stuff to say. Check out our Twitter and you can see all the good comments. And I, of course, always love talking to Christine and Naomi. Anyway, we would love to hear your thoughts on the Hills special. So definitely send us an email at wordsunspokenpodcast@gmail.com.
You can find us on Instagram at Words Unspoken Podcast or tweet us at The Hills Podcast. And oh, hey, if any of you out there are on Tumblr, we are too, at Words Unspoken Podcast.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed chatting with us about the Hills 10th anniversary special.
Can't believe it finally happened.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.
You and all your pretty little friends up in the hills where the party never ends. Your schemes and your dreams when you're whole and you're broken. I'm telling all about it in my words unspoken.
I don't know what I was saying. I was like,
I'm like, what are you doing?